Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing today? Thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. Welcome. So, today we're going to be talking about how to organize efficient in person meetings using Beekast. So, just to present myself very quickly, my name is Clara and I am the Sales Marketing Manager here at Beekast. All right, so before we start, I'm just going to make sure that everyone can hear and see me. So don't hesitate either giving me a thumbs up or some kind of message in the Livestorm chat just to let me know that you're seeing and hearing me all right. Okay, and I see some thumbs up. That's encouraging. So I think we're good to go. I'm going to let everyone kind of join in on their own time. I see the numbers are going up, so I think people are getting there. While we wait, I'm going to invite you to join us on a Bcast session. So the idea today is that you also join in on Bcast. You join in on the activities that I'll be showing you today, and basically you get to try the tool as well. So in order to join a Bcast session, there are many ways you can do this. You can either go on to beekast.live. You have the little link right there that I'm sharing with you on my screen. So it's www.beekast.live. And then you can just enter the session code that is also being displayed. Today it is the 998256. So you can go ahead and enter that session code, or if you have your smartphone with you, like I do, you can also scan the QR code that I'm displaying right here. So feel free to go ahead and scan that QR code, and it will automatically redirect you to the Bcast session that will be on today. So yeah, and then also a very simple way of doing this. Umaima, who's with me today in the Livestorm chat, she's our content creator here at Beekast, and she is sharing with you the link to the Beekast session. So you can also go ahead and join that session by clicking on the following link that is being displayed in the Livestorm chat. All right, so I think we're good. People who are joining in on this webinar today, welcome. I have my colleague Umaima who is sharing a link with you in the Livestorm chat, so feel free to go ahead and join us on the Bcast session today. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and jump right in, just showing you a little bit what we'll be talking about in this webinar. And as you can see, the idea is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about the kind of golden rules of what it means to host on-site meetings today. So these are golden rules according to us at Bcast, with our expertise when it comes to leading engaging meetings. And I think it's important to share with you, new expectations when it comes to 2023. And these expectations aren't going to be the same ones as before, as the ones, for example, before COVID, before we started doing a lot of online meetings. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then basically, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 best practices, each time highlighting a use case so that you guys can also get the most out of what I'll be saying. You can also kind of inspire yourselves, get inspired by these use cases, and even use them in your daily professional lives. So we'll be seeing 3 types of meetings: the information meeting, the project retrospective, and the one-on-one meeting. All right. So diving into these golden rules, as you can see right here, let me know. I'm just making sure that everyone is joining and that you can see my session. Yes, you can. Okay, perfect. So, I think it's safe to say that we have all gotten used to working remotely, or at least in a hybrid setting. And although working remotely has a lot of advantages, it can be hard to get colleagues motivated to come back into the office because they're all expecting a different experience than before. So, the question that we ask ourselves a lot at Bcast is, how do we use our tool? How do we use Bcast to during in-person meetings? How do we get people excited about coming back into the office, and how do we bring value to those interactions? And the answer to that question is that basically by helping people be more efficient in their work, thanks to these digital tools. And that's really what we're trying to do today, is bring you productivity, efficiency. Instead of using Bcast as the ultimate solution for everything. We're accompanying you on a daily basis in order to reach your goals in a much faster and more efficient way. And so to do that, you kind of have to rethink physical interactions because the goal isn't to be behind your computer all the time when you're at the office anymore, right? I don't know if you feel this, but I know that when I'm at the office now, I want to be interacting with people. I want to have meetings that are actually valuable. I don't want to be telling people this could have been an email or, oh, I could have been at home for this kind of meeting because it's so top down, for example. And so, on the contrary, I think we now live in a world where we can really take full advantage of our time on site to have different interactions from those we would normally be having when we're working remotely. And so that's where the three golden rules come in. And here you can see that everything starts with organization. Organization is crucial to lead engaging and efficient on site meetings. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you'll see that it's really going to be about planning ahead, planning your meeting and getting people involved as soon as possible. And then it also all comes down to connecting. You want to have valuable connections now in the office space. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a page group study that came out a couple months ago and it said something that I found really interesting. Basically, it said that 59% of professionals find it more difficult to make new connections at the office ever since COVID. So I think that here, what we should be seeing is that face to face meetings have really become opportunities to build new connections with your teams. And finally, we can't say it enough, but I think communication is really key here. And I think you've heard this multiple times already, but here we are going to try to communicate differently with our colleagues depending on how we work, hybrid, on site, remotely. And for that, we are going to have to transform our meetings and potentially change our habits. And that can seem a little scary because we all have our habits when it comes to preparing and leading a meeting and even everything that follows a meeting. We have all of that in place. We have a process. But what we see today is that we have to rethink that process because people aren't expecting the same one as before. What we want today is to feel more involved. We need more interaction. We need it to be dynamic, lively. And we're going to be seeing how you can do that with Beekast in order to be more productive and efficient on site instead of just remotely. So, to get to the heart of the matter, let's talk about the first golden rule, which is organization. So, not surprising here, my advice is, of course, to plan the course of your meeting well in advance. You have to involve your colleagues from the very start so that they know that this meeting is going to bring them the answers that they asked for and that it aims to answer their needs. So the idea here is to make the members of your team feel just as responsible for the meeting as you are. If I don't know if there are any managers here today in this webinar, but if you're a manager, you're kind of used to preparing everything and then showing it to the members of your team. But I think here we have to kind of think in reverse. You're not the only one preparing this meeting anymore. If you want to get people involved, if you want to make them want to come into the office for this meeting, have them join in from the very start. Have them build the meeting with you. What do they want to see? What questions do they have? And those are all things that you can do with Bcast. We'll see how in just a couple minutes. But so here, they'll think that the meeting basically is going to bring them something because, after all, they participated in its creation. So that's really the goal here. And one meeting that I find very nice to do in person is the information meeting. So basically, in 15 minutes, you come and you share some important information with your team. So, how does this work? Here we have an information meeting. So basically, a meeting format that I highly recommend for the information meeting that's a little bit different from maybe what you're used to is the stand up meeting. Here, instead of having people come around a table, sit down, they have their computer and you're kind of going to be giving them the information. For example, it can be about a new recruit, it can be about a change in a process, a new project that's being launched, just anything that you can think of. Well, instead of having them all sit down, you're giving them this information. It's very top down. And at the end, you say any questions. And as usual, you may have one person that asks a question, but otherwise it's nope, thanks. Let me go get my coffee. Here, what you're going to be doing is having them stand up. So no one has their computer with them, they won't need it. They have prepared the session beforehand. So basically, you have shared with them an asynchronous Beekast session. So this is a Beekast session that everyone can join in on and complete on their own time. And when the meeting launches, you will already have had all the information you need in order to answer their questions. So basically, the way it's going to go down is, let's say the information meeting is going to take place on Monday morning. Well, Thursday, the week before, Wednesday, Tuesday, whichever, but the week before, you share with them a BCAS session saying, hey, couple questions. On Monday, we're going to be talking about this project that we're going to launch. What do you want to see in this meeting? What are your questions concerning the project? What are maybe some potential roadblocks, hurdles? Is there anything that you're worried about? What do you want to talk about in this meeting? Everyone shares their answers in the BCAS session. They're going to give you their ideas, they're going to give you their questions. Then you can go ahead during the week and kind of start building your meeting based on their answers. After that, the day of the meeting on Monday morning, when people show up, they're showing up because they know that they already have information, that they already know what you're going to be telling them. You're going to be answering their questions, which makes the meeting so much more engaging, and also it just brings so much more value to them. So here on the slide that I'm sharing with you, you have a little code. I don't know if you can see, but on the bottom left part of my slide, you have a code, and it's basically an import code. It's the EY8S9U. And the way this works is that basically at Beekast, we have templates that exist, and you can go ahead and just import an information meeting that's already set up and ready to go. And you can do this really easily just by using this session code. So I'm going to show you very quickly how this works. I'm going to share this screen right here. So here, instead of seeing the presentation screen on Beekast, you get to see my screen as the owner of a session. So I have all of my little features that are available. I can see the results, the settings of my session. And what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to go back to my sessions right here. So here I am on the home page of my Beekast account. And when I click on organize a session, I can go ahead and click on import. And here, all I will have to do is go ahead and share the code. So it was EY8. Let me make sure that I get it right. EY8 S9U, S9 and U. And when I click on import, as you can see, it's loading, and I'm going to get a template called the information meeting. And this is a template right here that is ready to go. So I kind of have a golden rule, how it works. I get a little icebreaker. There we go. I get a challenge to kind of test my participants, see if the people, once I've shared the information, I get to see if the members of my team understood the information that was shared. I can kind of test their knowledge on what I just shared. Um, and of course, I have just other ideas. It's like a little template that you can use to get started easily. So that's something I highly recommend you do. It's super easy to set up. Let me just go back to this screen. And the session that I'm sharing with you today will be shared in the replay. So you'll be able to use these codes whenever in order to go ahead and follow along and create your templates, import your templates, whichever. All right, so moving on, let me get back to my session. Making sure in the chat very quickly, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. We are available in the Livestorm chat, so we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So make sure you do. And we can move on to our second golden rule, which is basically strengthening the ties between colleagues. So, here, the trick is to systematically come and engage the participants and involve them in the process. This is something that we just talked about, but here we're going to be really talking about how to build those connections and why they're important today, and how you can do this on site. So, for example, we've already talked about the need to create asynchronous sessions. So, sessions that your participants can do beforehand, which allows you to gather information and then share that information in a session, in a synchronous session, in a session that everyone participates in together live in real time. And during that session, you can come and engage your participants and kind of go get at the core issues at hand. And when we're talking about building connections in the workplace, I feel like one factor that comes back a lot, one thing that we get a lot here at Beekast from our clients and even in from colleagues at Beekast is decision making. So decision making is a very important factor that we're going to talk about because collective decision making collective decisions quickly is a challenge online and offline for a lot of teams, and you may have this challenged as well. It's not always easy to make decisions to get everyone kind of to get everyone on the same on the same page. And that's something that we worked on at Bcast because it was important for us to get people to go someplace, to get them to vote and to put in place a kind of democratic work tool that would allow people to come together, make decisions efficiently, quickly, and then even bring out an action plan. So how do we do this? Of course, remotely, this is something that you're going to be doing with the Bcast feature, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But on site, you can use this just as much as if you were working remotely. So, if you look at the next slide that I'm sharing with you right now, we're going to be talking about the project retrospective, which is a meeting that I love because it's ideal for strengthening the bonds between colleagues. And it's a time for everyone to come together and say what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they want to change for next time. And here, what you'll see during this meeting is that it's basically a brainstorming meeting. There's a whole part of the meeting that's dedicated to brainstorming together, and coming together and saying, okay, well, this worked, this didn't work. And when we're talking about what didn't work, what do we have to put in place? What do we have to create? What do we have to think up in order to find solutions and to make our next project even better? And so can also be highly effective in reducing certain tensions and just basically finding ways to work better together on a daily basis. And so, as you can see, this type of meeting can happen in three steps, just like our previous information meeting. You're going to start with an interactive icebreaker. This is an activity that we have on Bcast. Let me show you right here. So when you're looking for icebreakers, you can quickly find a really nice little activity that you can do with your participants by clicking up here on add a slide, making sure, yes, you can see my screen. So you can go to templates. Here, of course, you have all your activities. But if you go to templates, you're going to get a lot of a different activities that are possible. It's a template that basically answers different needs. So the way it works is I can filter really easily depending on the goals that I have. And if I click on initiate communication and I apply that filter, I'm immediately going to have all of the different icebreakers. And so one icebreaker that I particularly like is the emoji gauge right here. I'm going to import it and I can have smileys. I can choose, for example, superheroes, like how does this project make you feel? Do you feel more like Hulk? Do you feel more like Superman? I can have the weather, Star Wars, if you're feeling a little bit more cinematic. I can have Christmas. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and choose the weather, which I like. I click on submit, and automatically, I am going to have my little survey, my little icebreaker template ready to go. So let me just, oh, had a little Wi-Fi there. Okay, perfect. So here it is. As you can see, it just popped up in my session. This is the session I've been sharing with you today. And immediately I can click on Start Activity and everything is ready to go. So here you guys can go ahead and participate, take part, and tell me, for example, how are you feeling today? Or what did you think of our project? So, when you're doing a retrospective, kind of starting off with an icebreaker is a great way to kind of know what people thought of the project without having them have to say it explicitly, like, oh, I didn't like this. Okay, maybe I'm going to see a lot of rainy or gloomy. And as the facilitator, as the team leader who is leading this meeting, I can go ahead and say, okay, well, let's talk about this. I see a lot of people saying that it was rainy for them. Why? And you can go ahead and kind of start asking the right questions, and it kind of gets everyone talking and opening up. And it just makes everyone comfortable. So I really recommend that you use the icebreaker templates to kind of start off a meeting the right way. So going back to what I was saying, here we go, trying not to give you any spoilers. So once again, we were at the icebreaker template, and then you're going to use a retrospective template. So we have that template right here. It's the little session code that you have at the bottom left part of your screen once again. And this is where you're going to let your colleagues make the decisions. So this is a great way for people to kind of come together and start giving their ideas. And at the end, you can transform those ideas into actions and decisions. Once again, how does this work? Well, as you can see, as participants, you have this as well if you kind of look on the Beekast session that you're on today, but you have a feature called actions. And basically, when you're in a meeting on Beekast, you can have, for example, one person that's in charge of writing down the actions and the decisions that are being made during the meeting. So, what you're going to do is click on take an action or make a decision, for example. Here, I'll just talk about an action. So, the action is going to be okay, we have to decide on a budget. Oh, works better if I write it correctly. And then you can give details, for example, like, I don't know, like the maximum budget allowed. You can say, like, who do we have to talk to, for example. And then when you are connected to your Beecast account, today, as participants to this webinar, I didn't want to force anyone who may not have a Beecast account to join Beecast because then you couldn't have. So I let everyone join in using just a name. So everyone who joined the session today was able to just write down their name, which was a lot easier. But when you are connected to your Beecast account, you can assign these actions and decisions to other members of your team. So I could click here and assign this action saying, okay, so we have to do this. Who's going to do it? Well, Umayma, who has joined me here today on this webinar, who's in the chat. Umayma is going to be handling this action. She's going to be the one saying how we decide on a budget. So I can assign that to her, and then she'll receive a notification on her Beecast account saying, hey, Clara tagged you in this. You have something you need to do. I can then set a due date. So I can say, okay, this has to be done for next week. It is a pretty medium priority. It isn't that urgent, but let's say that it does have to be done kind of quickly. And then to do in progress or done, basically the status of your action. I can confirm it, and then automatically it pops up in my actions and decisions kind of space. And at the end of my meeting, I can have maybe like 50 actions, 20 decisions were made. Perfect, super productive meeting. And instead of having to write all of that down for people, I can just send the action plan, and I will get this action plan to my email in my emails, and it's just so easy to share with my team. Highly recommend you use our action and decisions feature. And I'm actually very curious to know if you knew about this feature, because I like presenting it a lot. I like talking about it to people around me who use Beecast, and every time they end up loving this feature. So I'd be very curious to know if this was something that you knew about or not. Feel free to answer whenever you want. For if anyone has joined us today, you have a session link that is has made it available for you to join in on our Beekast session. So make sure to do that. And I look forward to maybe one or two answers. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I'll leave this I'll leave this open. Let me just show you how it works if you're curious. So as a participant on the Beekast session, I can just see here, I can choose between yes or no. So Clara, me, I did know about the actions and decisions feature, so I can just click on submit, and I have taken part in the Beecast session. And then as the owner of the session, I can see who voted, who is voting, and I can also choose to finish the session. There we go. I think I had a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue, which happens sometimes here at the office. Perfect. Okay, so a lot of you didn't know about this feature, so I'm happy that I was able to show it to you. Really fun feature and highly recommend it. Moving on, because we are running a little bit short on time. That's my fault. I talk a lot. So, moving on to our third and final golden rule, transforming office interactions. So here, what I really want to say is that you should not be afraid to test new meeting formats. Just because you use Bcast doesn't mean that you can't, for example, have a meeting without a computer. On the contrary, you can actually offer different types of interactions where people feel like they're at the heart of the meeting, and where you use Bcast as more of an extra tool, as something that allows you to centralize information, make decisions, and even get a report or meeting minutes. It's really a tool that you can use on the side, and it doesn't have to be the center of your meeting. On the contrary, Bcast is just here to help you reach your goals, to help you be more efficient. And that's something that in office, it's really important to understand that you may not be using Bcast in the same way depending on how you're working. If you're working remotely, I tend to find that Bcast really is at the center of my meeting because it allows me to communicate with people in a much easier way. It allows me to engage my participants when they're online. It allows me to make sure that everyone's following along. I can launch little activities throughout the meeting so that even when people are behind their screen, they feel like they can interact. They feel like they can share things with me. But in the office, when everyone is here and you're having like face to face meetings, you want people to feel like they don't have to be looking at their screen. You want to be looking at the person in front of you and interacting with them. And so, this is why our final golden rule is really about kind of banning top down meetings when you're in person, when you're on site, because you don't want people to have to bring their computers everywhere with them. They're already doing that when they're working from home. So, on the contrary, think outside the box, get creative, use Bcast in every way possible. And I'm going to show you one way that I particularly like, which is basically a meeting with Bcast with no computer. So how does that work? I chose the one-on-one meeting, which is a really great meeting between a manager and an employee. They're both of them come together, and it's a time for them to interact and kind of exchange on how the employee feels. What are their missions today? What would they like? Where are they going? Where would they like to go in terms of their missions, responsibilities, training, things like that. And as a manager, it's a really important time to kind of build feedback culture and to get your employee to open up and maybe go to the heart of certain problems to help them, get better at their jobs, and just basically a really great meeting to have. If I don't know if anyone here has one-on-one meetings. I think it's a pretty traditional one in the workplace, but it's a pretty great one. So how can you prepare a one-on-one meeting with Bcast and without a computer? So once again, we go back to preparing your meeting in advance. It's a golden rule. That's why I keep bringing it back up. But you do want to prepare this session in advance. So basically, the manager is going to share with the employee a session that they are both going to answer on their own time. So the employee is going to share what they did, what they would like to do, the goals that they reached, the goals that they didn't reach, why didn't they reach those goals. The manager is going to say what they thought of their work over the month. Usually, a one on one meeting can be a monthly type of meeting. At Beekast, at least that's how we operate. And then during the meeting, the employee does not come with their computer because they have already filled in the session. So they come into the office, they sit down with their manager, and the manager just has to project onto a screen the session. It's usually one side, it's a slide, it's a board. So basically, it's kind of like if you had post-its on a wall. Everyone has shared their ideas, their thoughts, where they're going, and you can kind of take each idea and come back to it, circle around it. Okay, I see that you wrote down that you weren't happy with this. Why? What can we do to make it better? What would you like? What was missing? And once again, we have a whole bunch of templates that allow you to do this type of work, one-on-one meetings. And what's great is that during that meeting, you're just using Beecast as a screen, as a projection of all of those ideas. So it's a way to centralize information, to find information quickly, efficiently, but it isn't the heart of the meeting. The heart of the meeting is between the manager and the employee and the exchange, the interaction that they're having. And then at the end, you can usually the manager can take, of course, a couple notes on Bcast. So the manager will have a computer, but at least you don't. The idea isn't that the manager has the computer and is writing down everything during the entire meeting, because once again, you want to have that face-to-face interaction with real value to it. And then at the end of that, they can go ahead and just share the report, so the meeting minutes. To do this, once again, yes, I am sharing with you my screen. You can go to results, and here the results space of Bcast allows you to get kind of an overview of everything that went on in your session. So how many participants, how many activities, were there any messages, things like that. And I can easily go here and generate meeting notes or the Excel results. So this will be more like numbers, statistics, things like that. But if I generate meeting notes, it's going to automatically generate a Word document with everything that was said during the meeting: what actions, what decisions, what ideas were shared, who voted, who participated, things like that. And I also have participant scores right here, which allows me to see who was participating during my session, who was the most active, who was the most motivated. So once again, this allows you to see, oh, well, my most active users were Pauline, Juliette, and myself. So thank you, Juliette and Pauline, for participating so much in this session. So the results area is also a very strong tool that you can use within Bcast. And there you go. We now have seen the kind of three golden rules when it comes to hosting Bcast meetings on site. I hope this was something that was useful to you. I hope you liked this webinar. Thank you so much for joining in. Before you go, stay with me maybe like 5 more minutes. I'm curious to see if anyone had any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions, so that's great. Okay, I feel like it's pretty clear for everyone. I'll make sure that it is. So there's a little form that you guys will be able to join in on afterwards. But basically, if we come back to these 3 golden rules, it's organization, connection, and communication. So favor short and well-prepared meetings beforehand. This is really key. I feel like I've said it a million times during this webinar, but it is really going to change the way your on-site meetings work and the way people interact together. Also, encourage informal interactions. When people are coming into the office, they're also kind of looking, for that kind of coffee, like small talk. They're looking for a time to come together and not be behind their screens where it can be a little more awkward to get a conversation going. So when I showed you those icebreakers, that's a really great way to kind of start off a meeting, 5 minutes, not like no more, no less. It's just that very key, essential part at the beginning of a meeting where everyone kind of gets comfortable talking to each other, and it kind of makes the rest of the meeting feel so much lighter, so much more interesting, because everyone feels like they can go ahead and participate. And finally, communication. This is also key. You want to go ahead and motivate your employees by communicating, by helping them communicate with other teams appropriately. And Bcast helps you do that because it helps you share information quickly, efficiently, and it also helps you kind of optimize your time spent during meetings. You don't have to write down meeting notes. You don't afterwards. You can just generate a document. You don't have to go back on what was said, what was decided. You have an action plan ready to go. And all of those things are helping you kind of come together and be more efficient on a daily basis with your team, but also within your organization with other teams. So, thank you so much for joining this webinar. I'd love to know what you thought of this webinar, so you can go ahead and rate, give me a little rating on 5 out of 5 stars. And if there are any people here today who would like to take a next step, maybe some of you would like a demo. Some of you are maybe clients, so you're all set. There's no worries. Maybe some of you would like to try Bcast on your own. I'd be curious to know. Maybe we can get you started with a free offer. So yeah, let me know. I'd love to know what you would like. What are the next steps that you would like to take when it comes to Bcast? And of course, if you do wish to be contacted by a member of our team, I highly recommend you leave your email address and phone number below. This form will not be shared with anyone else. It is only I'm the only person who can see the results. So no worries. Don't be scared. I will not be sharing your personal information with anybody else, um, except for my sales team, who will be happy to contact you in order to bring you all the answers that you may need when it comes to Bcast. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar. Thank you for participating, and I hope to see you very soon for our next webinar. Looking forward to it, and I hope everyone has a lovely day. Thank you so much, everyone. Goodbye.